So today our guest is Jamie Denburg Habie, who is co-founder and director of La Nueva Fábrica. And today we will be talking about the curatorial residency from La Nueva Fábrica. Jamie, I pass microphone to you, and if you could tell us the story of La Nueva Fábrica, and then we talk about the open call.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nona, for having us. It's really nice to be here with everyone. La Nueva Fábrica is part of a bigger foundation called New Roots Foundation, which was established in 1998 in Guatemala. And that foundation is dedicated to supporting art, education, and the environment. In 2013, we started the residency program after the co-founder of the bigger, larger foundation passed away, and we wanted to, she was an artist, a Guatemalan artist, and we wanted to, in her honor, start an arts and culture branch of the foundation. So that's how the project initially started. It started as a residency program. We've now been doing residencies for 10 years, and always with the goal of eventually opening an art space to be able to have contemporary art exhibitions and also show the collection and the artworks of the co-founder of the foundation, Jamie Habie. So in 2018, we finally opened the art space, which is La Nueva Fábrica. And now the residency program is based in La Nueva Fábrica, and all the projects are kind of on the same site. We still have the other projects of the foundation are ongoing. So there are still environmental projects, and socioeconomic development in very marginalized rural communities in Guatemala. Sometimes these projects overlap. Sometimes an artist in residence will actually do an educational project or an arts project in the areas of Guatemala where we do development work. So sometimes these projects overlap, but as they stand now is a residency program, an art space, and all these other development projects that happen throughout the country. So, and as I mentioned, the residency program is 10 years old. And so we've had throughout the years different configurations, but it's been ongoing. So now that I've given you a little bit of the information, the general information, I wanted to share my screen and direct your attention to our website so we can go over the specifics of the residency and the open call. So I will share my screen. And if everybody can see here my screen, if you go to the general website, which is lanuevafabrica.org, you will see to the left there is a menu. Residency is one of the options. We have the page in Spanish and English for those who prefer Spanish as well. And here we have the main residency page. So I'm just going to go over the basics of the open call, and then I will open the specific document that we release every year that gives more detailed information about the particular cycle that we are in. So first I'll go over the general kind of benefits and the overview of the project. What the benefits include are a stipend of $2,000 US. We include housing. It's on the site of La Nueva Fábrica. We are actually called La Nueva Fábrica because we are on the site of a textile factory, which gave us part of its facilities in order to accommodate this project. So the residency house is actually a house that has walls surrounding it for privacy, but it is actually in a textile factory. So that's an important thing to note. And the private studio that we grant the artists is when an artist arrives, we determine what the best place is for them to set up their studio. And that is usually also in the textile factory. So while the textile factory is an independent business and it operates on its own schedule and its own timing, we have the kind of curious arrangement where our residency program is in this factory. So we work very closely with the factory, and both the house and the studios are on the same property and within a 1-minute walk to the art space. So everything is kind of all in the same area. We pick artists up from the airport and drop them off. We also help with logistical support for production. Currently, we offer residencies for 1 or 2 people at a time. So we dedicate a lot of attention to individual residents. So depending on the residents' needs, we might have weekly or bi-weekly meetings with the team to help their project, help support their project. We also organize scheduled access to carpentry, metalsmithing, and weaving equipment at the textile mill, should the artist choose to work in the textile factory. And this is all determined upon arrival, but it's also very helpful to know from people's applications kind of what their interests are to be able to better tailor the residency. We also offer the opportunity to engage publics through programming. So La Nueva Fábrica has its own exhibition schedule and its own activities, but we always encourage residents, for example, if they want to give a talk at La Nueva Fábrica, if they want to open their studios or set up kind of what they're working on, we can, for example, set up tables in the lobby of the art space and have like an open day where the public can come see what the artist is working on. Or any other, sometimes residents will do workshops or classes or organize a lecture. So it's very flexible as to what the possibilities are for engaging with publics. Also, some artists choose to do community engagement in some way. So we're always happy to be a bridge to our local community. Oh, and I'm sorry, I don't think I actually said this, but the application is open every year for artists, curators, and cultural practitioners. So we do accept a wide range of practices. The duration of the residency is between 4 to 8 weeks, determined upon the selection of the resident. Residencies are granted typically to one artist at a time, with the exception of artist duos, and we accept residents who are coming with their families. It's important to note that the house is within a textile factory, so it can be a bit loud, but we've had residents with families before and it's never been an issue. And residents are encouraged to engage with the activities and the programs happening at the art space. Please note that the airfare to and from Guatemala is not included and is the responsibility of the resident. Eligibility, 18 years or older. There's no necessity requirement for formal training in art. What we do ask is a commitment to artistic practice, research practice, curatorial practice, and an interest with engaging with the local context. We really care. Why are you coming to Guatemala? Why are you interested in this project specifically? While we're not required, basic Spanish is helpful, but there have been plenty of residents who do not speak Spanish, and we can help them with certain translation and help navigating the country. We are in a part of Guatemala, in Antigua Guatemala, which has a lot of tourism, so a lot of people speak English, and so it's usually quite an easy experience, even if somebody doesn't speak Spanish fluently. We welcome individuals from all backgrounds and do not discriminate on the basis of age, gender, religion, nationality, marital status, ancestry, color, race, disability, or sexual orientation. So the guidelines, a letter of intent outlining interest and project proposal, CV and resume, contact for 2 references who can speak to the applicant's professional capacity and their suitability to work in a collaborative environment. That's very important because the residency, while you will probably only be with an individual resident, perhaps one other person, it's a very social residency because the team of the art space is very open to helping the resident connect with local artists, with local practitioners. So it's helpful to have a reference for somebody who can speak to your ability to work in a group setting. I mean, it doesn't have to be, we don't prescribe a certain amount of social interaction by any means, but we definitely want to know how your relationship is with other people. We ask for a preference for residency length and dates, and at least one of the forms of documentation. We give up kind of a broad spectrum because there's different types of practices. So optional are links to an artist or cultural practitioner's website or media links, but required are artists, up to 10 images of artworks, and up to 3 YouTube or Vimeo links. And please just keep that under 5 minutes for each link. And we also, for cultural practitioners or curators, 2 published writing samples, up to 4 pages of documentation of past projects, This is pretty, whatever best describes your practice that can fit within this format. We accept applications in English and Spanish, and we will only consider applications that are correctly formatted because it makes it very hard for us. We've been getting a lot of applications every year, so it makes it quite hard to dedicate as much time to each person's application if it's not formatted correctly. And I'll get into the specifics of that shortly by opening the document for this year. Here, if you're interested, you can learn about our current resident and our past residents and the person who we consider our first resident, but I will leave you to do that research on your own if you're interested. And what I will do is I will go to this document, which has the specifics of this residency announcement. The Spanish can be seen on page 6 of this document. So here's some general information, which we pretty much covered already. But here, what I want to just draw your attention to is that we have a very specific format for how to apply. So please include one single PDF, a file size that fits in an email with this naming convention and the subject line. The application deadline is April 1st, 2023 at 6 p.m. Guatemala time. And we already have these information sessions. We're having one now on our YouTube channel. We have the links already to these past recordings, but you can just stay posted on our social media. We will have links. We also have links on our social media to these recordings, and Call for Curators will also be publishing this information session. So there's, if you didn't take notes, or if you forgot something that was said, you can reference these videos. The selection procedure is always independent, so we change our jurors every year. This year, the jurors are Elena Ketelsen Gonzalez, Daniela Morales Lisek, and Pablo Jose Ramirez. The finalists are usually interviewed on, they will be interviewed on May 30th if we conduct interviews. It's not always the case, but we do have the date set in case we need to. And select residents will be announced on June 15th. Please note that only the first 200 applications will be reviewed because of our team at La Nueva Fábrica. That is the capacity we have right now. And so please do try to apply if you're interested, not at the last minute, but perhaps a few weeks before. We also cannot respond individually to all applicants this year. So please, we have this date set that if you haven't heard back, please assume the residency application has not been successful. And I just wanted to make a note that every year the jury changes. So people ask often, can I apply again? Yes, there is no limit to how many times you can apply. And every year there is a different jury, a different set of eyes. And we do that so that we can kind of broaden the different types of perspectives that of people who are reviewing these applications. Although we always tend to invite people who have some understanding of Central America and our local context, which we find very helpful to make sure that we are welcoming residents who will benefit from our particular offerings. There's some frequently asked questions here where you can refer to after. We don't have to get into too many details, but I've already covered what the housing looks like. Art materials, we provide guides on where you can get supplies, and we also have meetings with residents to help them get settled once they arrive. We have no expectation of final artworks, but we do encourage residents to be open to sharing their work with the public or engaging with the public in some way. We can also organize several visits for residents during their stay in Guatemala to other exhibitions, to visit another artist studio, to keep this kind of create more opportunities for Guatemalan artists to engage with visiting artists and vice versa. We also are open to residents engaging with the other projects that our broader foundation is working on. And you can always visit the New Roots Foundation website if you're interested in what those environmental projects are. If you have practices that engage with the environment or with community work. The jurors, here's some bios of the jurors if you'd like to learn more about who will be reviewing the applications. And then again, this same information in Spanish. So this is pretty much all of the information. We post a lot on our Instagram. We keep this very active. And we also post about our events. So if you're curious more about the ecology of what La Nueva Fábrica does, what our current exhibitions are, how we work, our website is a good resource. And also our Instagram, you will see, for example, our current resident will have some posts on what she's working on. And that's a good way to learn also kind of what the general environment is of La Nueva Fábrica. So I'll stop my screen sharing, and I suppose if it's okay with you, Nona, now we can open the space to any specific questions that weren't answered.
Thank you, Jamie. That was so detailed. I think we covered pretty much all the aspects of the residency. It's just me, myself, I got some questions, which I'd like to ask. And first is probably if curatorial collectives can apply. And another question is whether you expect proposals focused on a certain topics, or it's pretty much open for all kinds of proposal.
Great questions. We do accept collectives. Just please note that the house is only comfortable for up to 3 people. If a collective comes and they're a group of 5 or 6 people and they say, you know what, we really want this opportunity, the honorarium maintains the same. So if it's a collective, just please note the honorarium will be the same for the whole collective. But if we have somebody that says, we're a group of 5 people, we really want to come, this is the perfect project for us, we will get our own housing. We have no issue with that. It's more rather that the capacity that we have a house with 2 bedrooms. You can kind of make it into a space for 3. We will be expanding our capacities for hosting multiple residents at a time, but we're just not there at this moment. So it depends more on the artists and the collective or the curatorial team's comfort around their own budgets and their own housing, but it is a possibility. And we have had artist duos before. That works very well. Proposals, what types of proposals? We accept we accept all proposals, but we definitely, as we say on our website, are looking for people who want to engage with this context. So we do definitely, the strongest applications are those that are, why do you want to come to Guatemala? Why do you want to come to Antigua? We don't expect that the artist or the curator will know in depth about Guatemala if they haven't been here, but we do expect it's kind of this balance between a proposal that's intentional enough that we understand that you've done your research and that you want to be here specifically. It's not the type of residency that's like, okay, we give you a studio space for a month and we don't bother you and you just work by yourself for a month, but you could do that anywhere. So we really are looking for applications like, why Guatemala? It's not that we bother people anyways. What I mean is that we engage with the residents as much as they want to be engaged with. Some people are more private and they just kind of are more independent. Some people want more of a social interaction, but either way, we are looking for people who know where they're coming to, and they know why they're curious about this place. And that can look like a lot of things. So I don't want to give you one specific answer for what that looks like, but some intentionality. We don't expect a proposal that's perfectly delineated. In week 1, I'll do this, in week 2, but it's that kind of balance between being open to the place, expanding your project once you arrive, and also having a bit of an arrow and a bit of an interest that propels you to come to this place specifically. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and another one is whether curators can apply with some existing projects, or they should be like completely new project.
Yes, so curators definitely can apply with existing projects if they think that they're relevant to the space again. So it's if you have a project that's an ongoing project that you think could be further developed here, or if you think, for example, there have been people who have said, I really want to come to Guatemala and do an exhibition at another space, but I would like to come to La Nueva Fábrica to further my research, to be able to do a collaborative project outside of La Nueva Fábrica. That's perfectly fine. It's less about the specifics of the project and more about whether it makes sense for our kind of values as a foundation and what we can offer. And that's also just so that the curator can make the most of their time as well. And yes, so that's definitely a possibility.
Sure. Well, let's see if someone from the audience has any question.
Oh, and I'll just add one thing specific to curators, is that curators tend to, we tend to organize more visits for curators so that they can go visit more artists. So whereas like maybe an artist is only interested in doing 1 or 2 visits a week because they're really focused on their studio practice, I will say that when curators come to the residency program, it tends to be a little bit more engaging socially in that sense. That's why we also ask for references about teamwork, because we will probably be doing more studio visits when a curator comes. We will be organizing more discourse between local artists, local curators. So that's just something to keep in mind, is that curatorial trips are usually a bit more active in going to other parts of the country and going to meet with people more often if it's necessary.
Yeah, and also, should curators aim at the final project at the space, or this is not included? Like,
there's no requirement for a final product. So whether it's an artwork or let's say wrapping up an exhibition proposal, it's really, we keep that very open because we understand that it could also be quite limiting or rushed, depending on how long somebody stays. But if it helps somebody to have a goal, for example, we have had people who really work well under the pressure of wanting to finish something before they leave, and they enjoy the accountability of working with the team to help that happen. So I think it just depends on the individual.
Right. You also mentioned that you're open for applicants to doing exhibitions within other spaces or institutions. So I think that's great, because curators can do a residency at La Nueva Fábrica and then they can collaborate with another organization, and the exhibition can be implemented through this kind of partnership or collaboration. So I think that sounds like a great opportunity indeed.
Absolutely. And we, because La Nueva Fábrica operates on a bit of an independent program. So a residency at La Nueva Fábrica doesn't necessarily mean an exhibition at La Nueva Fábrica. So a curator, for example, we do have certain spaces that we keep open for the possibility of a bit of a more spontaneous project to emerge. So there are spaces where a curator could, for example, use the lobby and say, I want to, at the end of this residency, have a small part of my exhibition or a small part of my project on display. Absolutely. But we definitely encourage collaboration with any number of institutions or artists locally. And so that is not in any ways limited.
I see. I see new people are joining the conversation, but let's see if anyone has a question. Please yeah.
Sorry, I did have some sort of like question. It was in regard of you sort of mentioned that we had to choose like our preferences of time of when were we going to take the residency, like throughout the year, but I'm not sure if there's like some sort of dates that I have to consider, like from, I don't know, from like April to September, you can choose what are your preferences. I don't know.
Thank you. That is a great question, Matthias. Thank you for your question. You can propose any time in the calendar year that's useful for you. Typically, what happens with our residency cycles, how they work, is that the earliest that somebody would be arriving to La Nueva Fábrica is in October, November, December of this year. What tends to happen more often is that the residencies will be programmed for the following year. So for example, if the residents are announced in June, it's more likely that somebody will be getting a residency for January, February, March, April, but we still we keep the calendar year open so people can send their preferences for dates. We unfortunately can't give you an exact answer until we receive all the applications, because based on what people's calendars are like is how we schedule our